And when the merger of WWE and UFC was completed last week, fans feared that cuts to the roster would be coming, especially after 100 employees from WWE's Stamford offices lost their jobs. The WWE Universe were right to be wary, as it turns out, as this week, WWE has parted ways with several superstars from both the main roster and NXT. Elias' tenure with WWE has ended, and he had quite the ride, even if it didn't seem like it during the final year of his run with the company. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful reports that while Elias hadn't been featured as of late, he had been pitching new ideas up until a month before his release, but they obviously weren't used. Ringside News previously reported that there was an internal belief that the Ezekiel character killed Elias' creative, and it just wasn't in the cards for the Drifter to return to the main roster. On Twitter, Elias referenced his time as the Drifter, as well as highlights such as working with John Cena and The Undertaker at WrestleMania and releasing a #1 iTunes album. Elias would also reveal, as if there was any doubt, that he was the one playing Ezekiel, and said he's had a blast during his time as a WWE superstar. As a two-time former World Heavyweight Champion, Dolph Ziggler is the biggest name cut this week, a surprising move as his contract wasn't up until next summer. It was only recently that Ziggler asked for some time off from WWE and will now have more time to hone his stand-up comedy routine as well as other ventures outside the ring. Sean Ross Sapp reports that Ziggler had actually wanted to leave WWE years ago, but was convinced into staying, and there's been plenty of names praising Ziggler following his release. On Twitter, John Cena gave his own tribute, pointing out that Ziggler competed 1,554 times for WWE, and adding that he has respect for the man he feuded with in late 2012. It was at that year's TLC show that Ziggler would defeat Cena in a ladder match, albeit thanks to the help of AJ Lee, but it'd be Cena who'd retain the US title when they faced off in October 2015. While the pair would subsequently have a few other matches against one another, none had the same significance as those two, and John clearly has a lot of respect for the show-off. Ziggler had been inactive for the better part of 2023, with his most recent match being a double countout draw with JD McDonough on the May 29th Raw, and what's next for the ex-superstar? Many are already pointing to AEW, and his brother Ryan Nemeth recently did tease Dolph's arrival, sharing a photo of the brothers caked in AEW gold. Whether that happens, or if Ziggler joins AEW at all, that remains to be seen, but with Dolph having appeared on BTE before, him joining AEW is not an outlandish idea. It's been an unfortunate week for the household of Riddick Moss and Emma, as both were let go from WWE mere weeks after announcing their engagement. This is especially hard for Emma, who shortly before receiving the dreaded phone call, was celebrating WWE's impending return to Australia for next year's Elimination Chamber event. Emma was no doubt ecstatic at the idea of being on the show, and Moss has tried to remain positive, taking to Twitter to say his wrestling career is far from over. Moss had one day been pegged for big things, with Paul Heyman once seeing him as a major player on Raw during the tenure when Heyman was the creative director of the show. Aliyah is another name cut this week, but while other releases came as huge surprises, many in WWE expected the former women's tag team champion to be let go. Aliyah had not competed since she and Raquel Rodriguez lost the titles over a year ago, and Fightful reports that she had not been factored into creative plans or even brought to TV as of late. Aliyah also leaves WWE with the record for the fastest victory in history, defeating Natalya in early 2022 in 3.17 seconds, which came after over half a decade in NXT, from 2015 to 2021. For Top Dolla, this is the second time in under 2 years that he's been released from WWE, and comes just one day after he refuted claims that he had heat within WWE. The reports of heat and his release from WWE are likely not related at all, and it remains to be seen what's to be done with the rest of Hit Row. Rick Boogs' ability to hype up a crowd could not save him from being released, nor could his impressive physique. In 2021, Boogs was aligned with Shinsuke Nakamura, and the pair would challenge for the SmackDown Tag Team titles at WrestleMania 38, but a leg injury derailed his momentum. When he returned to action, Boogs simply didn't have the same oomph behind him, as WWE management has clearly moved on from the guitar-shredding superstar. After Mustafa Ali announced that he was no longer with WWE, PW Insider confirmed that he too had been released, despite being booked for a North American title match at next week's No Mercy. Obviously, this match with Dominic Mysterio will have to be changed, and it'll be interesting to see what the future holds for Ali after a whirlwind career in WWE. In the years after his 2016 debut, serving as a last-minute replacement in the Cruiserweight Classic, Ali impressed fans and management to the point that he was in line for a major push in 2019. An injury would derail those plans while also paving the way for Kofi Mania, and when Ali returned, he was made the leader of Retribution, which nearly destroyed his reputation. Moving to NXT earlier this year was a decision praised by fans, and it was after last week's show that Ali vowed to confront Dragon Lee and Dominic during their match on next week's Raw. PW Insider also confirmed that Ali was indeed supposed to appear on Raw, frustrated that Lee was getting a title shot before he does, but those plans will have to be scrapped now. In January 2022, Ali stated publicly that he had requested his release from WWE, a request that Vince McMahon himself declined, and Ali would be taken off of TV. His deal with WWE was set to expire in the spring or summer of next year, and nobody in NXT had expected his release to happen, given the plans that were in place. Ali had also worked through an injury to make his NXT run happen, in a sign of his toughness, but now he'll have to wait for his next opportunity outside WWE. Shelton Benjamin's most recent tenure with WWE has come to an end, and the wrestling veteran and Hurt Business affiliate will no doubt be missed by many on the roster. Benjamin announced his release on Twitter, marking the end of his second run with WWE after previously being employed from 2000 to 2010, and more recently from 2017 until now. The former US Intercontinental Tag Team and 24/7 champion was very respectful, thanking everyone in WWE for his run, but his tenure has now come to an end. Mace and Mansoor have both been released, as PW Insider were first to report, despite a comedy act that many in the WWE universe found hilarious. It was after Maxine Dupree split from the Maximum Male Models, though, that the pair were taken off of TV, and it was reported at one time that WWE had plans for much different characters for the two. Whatever plans they were, that didn't pan out on TV, and now the male models are out of WWE, while Dupree remains as part of Alpha Academy. Dana Brooke is another name fans won't be seeing anymore, as after joining NXT in 2013, she lasted over a decade with the promotion. In the final year of her run, Brooke had returned to NXT and had been involved in a program with newcomer Kalani Jordan, which will now, of course, be scrapped. Brooke had returned to NXT to refresh her character, and will likely be best remembered for her 15 reigns as 24/7 champion. It should be mentioned that Brooke's drive was never called into question in WWE, as those in the promotion always saw her give it her all, but that didn't save her from being released. Shanky was a somewhat surprising name to see on WWE's releases this week, as the Indian superstar had just gotten back from competing at the Superstar Spectacle. Quincy Elliott took to his Instagram story to confirm his release from WWE after never being given too much of a chance to shine as part of the NXT roster. Dabba-Kato is another powerhouse to be cut from WWE after a career that saw him appear on both the main roster and NXT. In 2021, Kato was brought to the main roster as Commander Aziz, the henchman of Apollo Crews, and before that, had worked as part of Shane McMahon's Raw Underground during the pandemic. Kato was brought back to NXT where he was given a fresh coat of paint, but that didn't translate into much TV time, and now he will have to find new opportunities elsewhere. Alexis Gray was a former sprinter who competed for the Bahamas national team before being brought to WWE this year, but her time has come to an abrupt end. A member of the 2023 Performance Center rookie class, Gray took to Twitter to announce she is no longer with WWE, and would follow up by saying she put in the work but was still cut. This release won't stop Gray from chasing her dreams, but now she'll have to see those dreams materialized outside WWE. Kevin Ventura-Cortez took to Instagram, where he confirmed that WWE has released him from his contract after having just one professional wrestling match in his career. That match saw Ventura-Cortez and Javier Bernal squashed by Indus Sher on the May 29, 2023 Raw, and his release comes just over a year after the college football star joined after the SummerSlam 2022 tryouts. Like Ventura-Cortez, Daniel McArthur was signed after the SummerSlam 2022 tryouts and joined as an NCAA All-American and ACC track and field champion from the University of North Carolina. McArthur holds both the indoor and outdoor shot put records at UNC and attended the 2020 Olympic trials, but that did little to help his career in WWE. Daniel McArthur never made his in-ring debut for WWE, but that's not to say he won't compete elsewhere, and only time will tell what's next for him. Like many cut from the NXT brand, Yuliya Leon didn't get a ton of opportunities to showcase what she could do prior to her release, which was confirmed on Twitter by Sean Ross Sapp. Bryson Montana joined WWE in August 2021 following SummerSlam tryouts in Las Vegas, and out of his 22 matches, only one would play out on NXT TV, a Battle Royal from March of this year. Montana announced his departure on Twitter and thanked everyone who's been a part of this chapter of his life, before saying the next chapter will be a familiar chapter, teasing something to come. Brooklyn Barlow took to Instagram to announce her exit and was very professional, saying that she was grateful for all her time with WWE and all that came with it. Like Montana, her only NXT TV match saw Barlow compete in a Battle Royal, this one being in June of this year, and we'll have to see what's to come for her career. This was a tough day of releases, and it appears that we are getting more names. Hopefully everyone who WWE cut today will land on their feet. As to what's next for talent, they'll have to wait for their non-compete clauses to end, which, as Sean Ross Sapp confirmed, will last 90 days for those with main roster contracts. That means they'll be free to sign with another company from Wednesday, December 20th, and if NXT talent have 30-day clauses, as in the past, they'll be free to appear elsewhere from October 21st. It's never a good thing to lose your job, and while he'll never have to worry about WWE not wanting to work with him, The Rock took to Twitter to try and give some words of encouragement. The People's Champion called releases like this so effing tough, and had special praise for Dolph Ziggler, adding that he will always be a support and fan of the show-off. The Rock added that he's excited to see what Ziggler and everyone else does next, reminding those without a job that this setback is not the end. While cuts had been expected, many thought they would not happen so suddenly after the layoffs from WWE's offices in Stamford, especially given the bad PR of firing too many people at once. So why did these roster cuts happen now? According to Fightful Select, many WWE superstars believe that WWE was trying to minimize the damage by putting these cuts out around the same time as other big news stories. They explained, "The line of thinking from many on the roster is that WWE aligned these cuts with the announcement of Elimination Chamber and SmackDown rights feed deal in order to minimize the negative impact on the company. TKO's stock dropped from $96.23 to $88.95 by 10/10 Eastern after the SmackDown announcement. The stock now sits at $86.94 as of 12/20 Eastern, as news of releases have filtered in. WWE might want to minimize the impression that they make with these releases, but that won't stop fans from talking about this. After all, they fired Emma on the same day that the company announced a huge Elimination Chamber event in Australia, so expect plenty of scrutiny in WWE in the days and weeks to come. Unfortunately, it appears that these cuts may not be over just yet, as according to sources, WWE is already making a list of the next names to be cut, which includes Tamina, Sanga, Apollo Crews, Akira Tozawa, and Humberto Carrillo. Until these names are publicly confirmed though, nothing can be said for certain, but don't be surprised to see these names and more leave WWE soon. Hopefully, some of the names gone from WWE will land somewhere like AEW, and who do you hope to see signed by Tony Khan? Sound off in the comments. Now, it should come as no surprise that LA Knight, one of WWE's most popular superstars, has not been released this week, but at one time, his exit seemed inevitable. During the Maximum Male Model's first Twitch stream after being released, Mansoor brought up LA Knight and revealed that at one time, he was going to be fired. Mansoor added that Vince McMahon hated the Max Dupree vignettes and saw no other way to rid his company of the Dupree character other than to release the megastar. Thankfully, someone came up with the notion of changing Knight's character rather than just release him, and given Knight's popularity and merch sales, this was definitely the right call. During the AEW Women's World Title match at this week's Dynamite Grand Slam, Toni Storm locked lips with Saraya, hoping to play mind games with the champion. That didn't stop Saraya from retaining the gold, and on Twitter, the British wrestler celebrated her win and first year with AEW, adding that she's spoken to HR about Storm's behavior. Saraya is obviously speaking in character, and has used similar mind games in the past herself, and what did you make of this spot and their title match on this week's Dynamite? AEW Dynamite Grand Slam also saw an unfortunate incident with Jon Moxley, as the now former international champion did not kick out of Rey Fenix's pinfall attempt, but the ref still only went to 2. It has now been confirmed that Moxley suffered a minor concussion during the pre-match brawl, meaning he wrestled the entire match concussed. We'll hopefully have more information on Moxley in the days to come, but for now, all we can do is wish him a full and speedy recovery. More injury news as Adam Cole suffered an ankle injury during AEW Dynamite when he ran in to support his best friend MJF in the main event. In an update from Fightful Select, it was confirmed that Cole sustained an injury while jumping to ringside and was seen limping backstage, and Fightful was told he was in obvious pain backstage. Cole was taken to the hospital, and while he was able to leave, he was seen on crutches, indicating that this may be another long-term setback for the popular star. With Wrestle Dream just mere weeks away, this injury could not have come at a worse time, and while nobody expected him to get injured during a match he wasn't a part of, this situation just shows the many perils involved in professional wrestling. As we mentioned earlier, WWE will return to Australia for Elimination Chamber, and that event will take place on February 24th in Perth. Optus Stadium, which can hold 70,000 people, will host WWE's first premium live event down under since 2018, in what will be a huge night for the WWE Universe in Australia. On this week's Raw, Tommaso Ciampa and Giovanni Vinci competed in a historic match on the broadcast, but not historic in a good way. During Wrestling Observer Radio, it was revealed that this match holds the record for the lowest viewed match in Raw history, with 1.192 million viewers at the time watching the bout. It's worth stating that this week's Raw was up against 2 NFL games, which typically trounced Raw in the ratings, but this is a piece of history no wrestler wants attached to their careers. It was in January that Vince McMahon forced his way back into WWE, telling those at the time he was back to find a buyer of his wrestling promotion. That has since happened, with Endeavor now being the proud owners of WWE, and could McMahon be preparing to retire from the wrestling industry again? In an SEC filing, it is stated that all of McMahon's 28.84 million shares in WWE are for sale, and if they were all sold, it would net the 78-year-old around $3 billion. The filing states that McMahon and others, including Nick Khan, will be selling stockholders in this offering, leaving very little wiggle room for McMahon to retain control without those shares. With a recent federal search warrant and grand jury subpoena served to him, McMahon could be seeing a quick exit from WWE, one that would also add billions to his already massive fortune. An exit like this wouldn't endanger TKO's ability to sell McMahon's shares, and with the chairman reportedly looking frail during the recent WWE staff meeting, his time with the company may indeed be coming to an end. And we're ending with SmackDown, as the Blue brand has been on Fox since 2019, but that will end in October of next year. WWE sent out a press release today informing everyone that they have inked a 5-year deal with the USA Network for SmackDown, but Raw and NXT, which already air on USA, may not be there for much longer. The Hollywood Reporter states that negotiations over Raw and NXT are in a highly active state, with a variety of parties, including traditional networks, streaming services, and unexpected players showing interest. As for why SmackDown is leaving Fox, it is believed that the consensus on both sides is that SmackDown and the network never reached their fullest potential, and we'll have to see where Raw and NXT end up in these unprecedented times for WWE.